Welcome back, Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. It's great to see you again, and I hope you're doing well. Today we have another book review, and today's book review is going to be on Metamancer by William I. Zard. I'd just like to give a really big thank you to the anonymous subscriber who commissioned me for this review. I really appreciate your support and for wanting to hear my opinions on a book that you would like me to talk about. So thank you again so much to the anonymous subscriber who commissioned this. And I hope that this review is helpful for you and that you like what I have to say. Now, let's go ahead and get started with talking about the book. Metamancer is about a kid named Johnny who has a mysterious background to him. He is brought up by the Dabaraks, and there's always been some kind of mystery as to where he comes from and who he is. And as he grows up and goes through his life, he kind of discovers some things about himself that even he didn't know and didn't realize. So this book is all about the beginning of Johnny's story and kind of how he's growing up and how he's kind of developing into the person that he is going to be. So that's the basic concept of this. And now, if you've watched a lot of my book reviews, you know I usually like to do sections like what I like, what I don't like about the book, and then overall what I think if it should be recommended or not. But I feel like for this particular book, that kind of structure doesn't work as well because I don't necessarily have a lot of things that I'm like, I really like this aspect and I don't really like this aspect about this book. I feel like a lot of my thoughts and feelings are kind of overarching over many different aspects of the book, and they're kind of a neutral ground. They're kind of a positive, negative at the same time. So there's not really clear cut of like, really liked this aspect, but really didn't like this aspect. So I'm just going to kind of do a general discussion on it. And the main thing I want to say about this book is that based on what I looked up and based on what I know about from like looking on Amazon and other places, is I think this book is meant to be an adult level novel. But for me personally, I feel like it seems like more of a young reader novel. It makes it seem like it's more of a younger age novel. So again, maybe it is meant to be more of a younger age novel and I just missed it, but I looked in several places and I never saw anything that labeled it as meant to be for a younger reader. So for me, my main thought about this book as a whole is that it really reads and seems more like a younger novel read. It doesn't seem like a high level adult read. So I think that that's the main thought that kind of overbranches all the other elements of the book. For example, the writing style. The writing style, I think, is very clear. It's obviously has, good writing in the fact that it's explanatory. You can tell what's happening. You can tell what's going on. It's not a lot of like jumbled mess and like confusion of what's going on. It's very clear. But I think the writing style itself is not that sophisticated. It's a much lower level writing style. It doesn't have a lot of the maturity and sophistication that most adult novels have. So even though it's clear to understand and to read it, which is very, very important, of course, it's one of the most important aspects of any book is to be actually able to understand what you're reading. But it doesn't really have the nuance of an adult novel. It doesn't have that sophistication and that mature way of stating things. And over-explains or use dialogue to explain things to the reader that it's not really necessary, or in a way that seems a little bit less mature than an adult novel. The characters, I feel like in general, don't have as much depth to them as I would like. I feel like they seem a little bit more surface level. Not that that's bad, it just doesn't have the depth that an adult novel would have, and it seems a little bit more on that lower end young adult kids novel level of depth to it. So again, that's what leading me to kind of feel like it's a younger adult or younger age reading style. As far as the world and the fantasy elements, I do think that they have a lot of potential. I do think that some of them could be interesting, but again, it lacks that depth, that sophistication to it that makes it a little bit harder for me to be fully invested in the world and fully excited about those elements. Again, I would have liked a little bit more depth, a little bit more sophistication to it. The only thing that I think is an actual negative about this book is the plot. Not that the plot's bad. I didn't find the plot to be bad in the overall sense, but I do feel like the story, it starts where it should start, and then it has this big block in the middle that I think I don't really understand the point of it for the story as a whole. I don't feel like it develops our main characters or any of the characters overly much. I don't really understand the significance of the events that happen and why we were told of it. I don't understand why we didn't just kind of cut those parts out and just get to the meat of the story, where more of the fantasy elements are involved and more of the magic of this world is involved. I feel like a lot of it is trying to build up this character and like have it go through like sorry, I'm just trying to figure out how I want to say it. Growing up portion of it to like see how he was developed, and I kind of have that more of like if you've read like the Belgariad series or some of the older traditional fantasies, they have the character start off like really young, or as they grow up and kind of show them developing into who they are. I think it was trying to go for that kind of storyline, but really I feel like a lot of it doesn't really mean much in terms of the character. I feel like the character goes through a couple of these stages that are just kind of throwaway. They don't really add to the plot or add to the character, and I would have really preferred it if like we had it starting off a little bit how it starts, and some of those elements are super important, but then kind of either do a jump time or kind of maybe do something that a little bit more necessary for the character that adds a little bit more depth, or really just slice it, cut it, do the beginning as more of a prequel, and then cut out that middle to beginning part that's just extra, and then start where the story actually has a little bit more meat and kind of rework the story that way. So I personally feel like that was the only real negative, was I felt like a lot of those beginning points didn't totally seem like they mattered. Now, of course, this is book one of a series. It doesn't have an ending that's like a final stopping point. So maybe the next book will have a little bit more meat to it. But at least for this first book, I think overall I would recommend it lightly. I don't think it is something that's amazing, 5 out of 5 star, really just run out and go buy it right now. But I do think if you have a younger reader at home, somebody who is maybe like age 10 to 14 maybe, that this book could be a fun fantasy adventure for them to read and to kind of get into that genre and to be more at an easier level of reading and a little bit less sophistication, which sometimes can be better for those younger readers. They don't have to try and get all the nuances of everything. So in general, I would say if you're an adult, it probably will not be your thing. Probably will not be the story that you're just going to rave about. But if you do have that younger, if you are of younger age, or if you have somebody at home who's getting into fantasy and is of a younger age and you really want to introduce them to some more, I definitely think that this is actually a good kind of starter fantasy book that could then hopefully develop a little bit of that love for fantasy and to be more interested in finding out more about those more sophisticated books. So overall, I think it is recommended, just maybe not for the age group that it is advertised, at least online. Okay, I think that's it for me on this review. Hopefully I covered everything, and if you have any other questions about this book, let me know. Thank you again for the commission. I really appreciate your support, and I hope that this review is everything that you had hoped for. And I guess I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.